You can be what you wanna be. Be what you wanna be. You just be what you wanna be with me.
Good morning, Mindset Warriors. It's Happy AF Day, episode 5. Welcome, family. Welcome. How is everybody going? Hope you all had an awesome weekend. I'm feeling really proud of myself this morning. I have just been on fire. And then I learned something new about myself about being on fire. And let me share it with you. I've realized that I'm no good if let me start that again. Not that I'm no good, but I've noticed, Jojo's on. Hey, beautiful Joe. I've worked out that when I have time on my hands, right, and when I don't come skidding through the door and I'm in a rush and I'm like I don't know what to do with myself. I was so early and on time and my studio was set up and I was so organized and, I literally was walking around going, which is ridiculous. And so what I learned about myself is I'm literally in this situation where if I have got time on my hands and I'm not skidding through the door, rushing around like a crazy mad person, I don't know what to do with myself. And it got me to thinking, like, what does that mean about me as a person, right? Like, what does that actually mean? Have I created a story in my head that I only thrive when my back is up against the wall and when shit's going sideways and there's bombs going off all around me? Only then can I show up and be amazing. Because I got to tell you, that's how I felt this morning. I was so organized. I was here an hour early, even earlier, like a couple of hours early. And I was kind of like walking around and listening to music and setting my setup I should say, I wasn't even setting it up. My assistant did a great job. She set it up and it was all perfect. And I was literally like, dum-de-dum, dum-dum, dum-dum. And I actually started getting a little bit anxious. And I was like, interesting. So I thought I would share this with you because what patterns do you do, right? What patterns do you do that serve you and what patterns do you do that maybe don't serve you? Because what I learned about myself this morning is I actually have a pattern that has had me busy all my life and it kind of has served me. But is it a useful pattern to keep? Because I'm really working, yeah, thanks, Sarah. Proud of me, right? I know. I'm working really hard to change that so that I've got systems in place, there's some procedures, and my whole vision around creating this, mission and where I'm going. And one of them is that I know I get to be more organized and I get to have, processes in place. But today, when everything was just like fell into place and it was perfect, my judging critical minds went into this space of, oh my God, is everything okay? Is that not all right? And so in the midst of that, I manifested a phone call so that I could be left right up to the last minute again, because that's how I thrive. I do definitely thrive when I'm under the pump and I'm under the pressure. So anyway, that was something interesting I learned about myself that I had no intention of talking about today, but because it happened, I thought, I really want to show up with you guys each week and really just be myself, okay? And you're going to get all of me. So sometimes I'm going to be nice and polished and sometimes it's going to be a clusterfuck of grand proportions and it could be anything in between and everything in between throughout every single episode. And this is the first time I've actually been able to see my peeps here. So I'm really proud of myself. I nailed the technology this morning. I practiced, I figured it out and I'm here and the audio is working and my tech is working, the internet's working. It's like, and my brain is going, oh my goodness, is this all right? Like, are we okay? Is this okay? So what I want to talk about on today's episode is I really want to share with you a few different things that happened over the weekend. And it really got me to thinking about the people that we surround ourselves with, okay? And the story that we tell ourselves about that situation. So I want to explain what I mean by that. I got to catch up with a few of my beautiful friends over the weekend and connect both on the phone and in person with people that are very, very dear to me. And I realized that I have always spent a lot of time in the past worrying about what other people think, right? I have always compared myself, and I know that, like, as human beings, we all do that. But I didn't realize to the degree with which I used to do it until I started noticing how it doesn't impact me in the way that it used to. And I would be lying if I didn't say that I don't still go into comparison, because I think that that is the human condition. But I catch it pretty quick and I move myself forward. But I was having a great conversation with a dear friend over the weekend, and one of the things we started talking about is how we really don't know very much at all. And the conversation was all based on, I guess, a book that she'd been reading, Jordan Peterson's, I think it's called The 12 Rules of Life. And if you've read it, it's a very interesting read and quite polarizing in certain areas. But it was really interesting because we both kind of like have come to this point in our life where we understand that really we don't know a great deal. But the little bit that I know about is based on a story that I've created, and it's based on my limited experience, right? And each and every one of us can only see through the lens of our life experience. So it's really interesting because there was a lot of people, me included, that used to go around and go, I know and I believe, and like acting like I know everything. But the reality is I know very little, but the little bit that I know a bit about, I know that it's worked for me. And my mission with this show is to share those insights and awarenesses, and with the greatest hope and humbleness, I hope that these little, insights and awarenesses bring you some help and some joy. And I just actually jumped off the phone from a beautiful lady as well that I was chatting with. And, it was really interesting because she was talking about depression. And truthfully, my real passion is helping people that struggle with anxiety and depression and addiction, because I've been there. I would say I have not really experienced deep depression, but that's because I numbed it with addiction. So I don't really know whether it was there or whether I probably can't speak to it from that standpoint, but I do know how it feels to not feel good. And I know how it feels once you get out of that black cloud and you feel better, right? And I was chatting with this lady, and it was really interesting because she shared with me this story just in a few minutes prior to this show. She shared with me that she struggled with depression, her daughter struggled with depression, her mother struggled with depression. And I said, yeah, see, so you had a great teacher. And she's like, yeah, I did. Now, I know that might be a controversial statement, because I know that people that struggle with depression probably don't think that it's something that they learned. And I'm not, you can debate away about this. There's lots of different thought processes around depression. But what I do know based on the work that I have done is that I have seen people who struggle with depression, and it has come from, an untreated trauma. It has come from a chemical imbalance in the brain, or it has come through a pattern that they've learned from somebody, right? And like anything, when you learn something and you do it again and again and again, it essentially creates what's called a neural pathway in the brain, right? And so what ends up happening with people who are struggling with depression is they have a freeway to sadness and a freeway to, fear, and a freeway in their brain to depression. And they've only got an itty bitty dirt track to happiness. And so it was really interesting, and I was so grateful for this phone conversation this morning, because it reminded me again of my commitment and my passion and my dedication towards sharing what I've learned that can help people undo that freeway to that darkness and open up a little pathway to the light. And I'm not saying it works for everybody, and I really don't know if it would work for you, but what I do know is that it has worked for thousands of my clients, and with any luck, it might work for you too. Damn, I'm rhyming and shit. That's what's happening this morning, people. I'm rhyming. So, listen, here is what I want to say. Here is just a few little things that I've learned that can definitely help you around your mental state, okay? Now, you might notice in the comments section there, I've talked about who are the people you surround yourself with, right? And your vibe, it attracts your tribe. And you might have heard a saying in the past that like attracts like. So if you're doing depression, or if you're doing sadness, or if you're doing, anger, or if you're doing madness, or any of those things, chances are you're going to attract people that are really similar to that, right? And that's not probably what you want, right? And so I want you to sit back and I want you to do a bit of an audit. And I don't care how old you are, whether you are watching this show and you're 18 or you're 80 or somewhere in between. I want you to sit down and have a look at who are the people that you spend most of your time with, right? What are the kind of people? Are they people that you look at and aspire to be like? Or are they people that you look at and think, oh God, geez, like they've got a rough life, everything's, you know? Or are they people that judge the shit out of you and are critical? What kind of people do you surround yourself with? Or do you feel incredibly lonely because you struggle with anxiety and so therefore you don't want to go out and meet people? Wherever it is that you're at, okay, if it's not somewhere that you want to be, then there are things that you can do to change your state. Now, if you've watched every episode so far, you would have heard me talk about things like changing your state through listening to music, changing your state through moving your body, changing your state through writing a story and reading it out aloud. And there's lots of different things you can do. But one of the easiest things I've found, okay, is little random acts of kindness. And these are things that you can do totally incognito and they make you feel good, right? So I'm just going to give you a few examples. I'm going to give you an example of something that happened over the weekend with this weather, right? And I'm only sharing this with you not to kind of like make myself look really important and clever and amazing, but I guess I want to share it with you because it's something that I learned a long time ago, and I always look for opportunities to do stuff like this because it makes me feel good, right? And I don't know if the word is hedonist, but I like to feel good. I prefer feeling good over feeling not good. So it started bucketing down with rain the other day, okay? And I had popped out of the car to go and get a jacket. My little girl was inside. We were getting our nails done. We were having a mani-pedi, and it was a girls' day, right? And so it was pouring with rain, okay? And I'd grabbed my umbrella and I had like a bag and I was kind of running back and, you know, getting soaked. And this poor lady, I could see her, she's struggling. She's got like a trolley. And if you live on the Central Coast, this stupid car park where we were, like, I don't know how they design them around supermarkets, but this woman was struggling. Plus she was getting soaked, right? And so I ran over to her and I stuck my umbrella over her and I helped her over to her car and we filled the car up and then she kind of went back. And we just got chatting and she was so grateful. And it was such a simple, easy thing for me to do, right? But then we got chatting and it turns out she has a little home cooking business and we chatted about that. And then I shared my story about what I do. And she said she'd drop her cards in for me. But that little moment, right? Until I'm now sharing this with you, I haven't spoken it to anybody else, but I'm sharing it with you because that was something so easy for me to do. And I have a question. If you saw someone in that same situation, would you do that? Would you just take the 2 minutes to help a fellow human? Look, I have to stop myself from not pulling over on the side of the road when I see someone standing there and it's raining, and you know, wanting to pick them up and drive them somewhere because, you know, safety, and I have a child. But I know in the past I've done stuff like that. And I don't know that I actively do it because it makes me feel good or just because I learned a long time ago that random acts of kindness are one of those things that you pay things forward and, you know, what you give out, you get back. But I also kind of learned that, you know, you give to give, and I have a really blessed life. You know, I have a blessed life. I have beautiful friends. I have my health. I have a beautiful family. Both my parents are still with me. My beautiful daughter. I have great friendships, like I have a great successful business. And so for me, like, I really believe that a huge portion of all of that comes from just energetically who I am, which is showing up and doing and being and sharing everything that I have, right? So I wanted to mention the whole random acts of kindness thing because I think, truthfully, I probably learnt it back, or I learnt the concept of random acts of kindness when I watched one of my favorite all-time movies called Pay It Forward. And, you know, if you haven't seen that movie, I've talked about it again and again and again. If you haven't seen it, you have to go and watch it because it's a great film with a great message. And I really believe in it. I really believe that that plays a role in how you feel. And if you're watching this show, then I know it's because you want to learn how to manage your mindset better. You want to learn how to do happy. So that's just one little thing. Another little thing that I want to bring up, okay, let me just quickly go back before I finish on that note, right? The thing about that random act of kindness, okay, is that I know that woman will be sharing that with someone else, right? And so what happens is that it's like this thing that multiplies, right? Because I did that, and then she's going to go and tell someone, right? Oh my God, you wouldn't believe it. I got stuck in the rain today, and this girl, lovely girl, she helped me with her umbrella, and like what that might do for the person who she shares it with, that might just like change that person's whole viewpoint on humanity in that moment, in that day. That woman might have been having a really bad day, and that happened, and that might have changed it around. And you guys have the power to do that for people, right? It doesn't matter who you are. It doesn't matter if you are a kid or if you're an adult. You have the power to positively impact someone today. You can compliment someone's hair. You can compliment them on their cool shoes, on something cool that they said, right? And these are all simple, small things that you can do that actually make you feel really good. So it's like this like multiplying effect that the more you give, the more you get. And I'm not saying you should give to get, give to give, but I promise what happens is that you end up getting back just as much as you give out. It's just, I don't know, it's the law of reciprocity. It's a law and it works every single time, okay? So, who else we got here? Hey, Jenny. How you going? Oh, I love you girls. And it's so nice to finally actually be able to see everybody in here in this group. This is so cool. So make sure you guys are sharing this. If you've got friends that, you know, are struggling, make sure that you get them into this group so that they've got a tribe. Because one of the things that I know about people that struggle is they struggle to find their tribe. Because when they're not feeling good, they're like, well, when I get myself together, I'll go out and I'll find my people. No, that's not how it works, okay? You need to set an intention. You need to create an intention to find your tribe. So I want to take you back because I know a lot of people look at me now and go, oh my God, it's all right for you. Everything's great for you. I want to take you back for myself to probably 10 years ago. And I remember going to a friend's birthday party. And I, at the time, really didn't have a lot of friends. I had been on the Central Coast for a long time and I really had never kind of found my tribe. The people that I'd associated with really hadn't added a lot of value. I kind of hung around people that I'm embarrassed to say I was a bit self-important and a bit arrogant and pretty ego-driven. And I kind of hung out with people that I maybe, thought weren't quite as high up the food chain as me. And I did that because I was insecure and I needed to feel good about myself. Now, I can tell you all this back on reflection, but at the time I didn't realize, okay? So I wasn't walking around thinking my shit didn't stink and I was like on top of the world. In fact, I was pretty bloody insecure and I struggled a lot. But looking back, I can look back in hindsight and go, yeah, I surrounded myself with people that were safe, right? Anyway, 10 years ago, I ended up finding myself a single mum and I had a beautiful daughter and I really didn't have a great network of friendships. And I made a conscious decision that I actually made with my ex before we separated. And that was that we were going to surround ourselves with people that inspired the shit out of us, right? People that were like doing something in the world, like that were going somewhere and they were being somebody. And people that essentially, I wanted to hang out with people that kind of intimidated me, people that I would look at and go, wow, like I want what that person's got. I want to aspire and I want to end up there. And it was a scary concept, but from the day I made that decision, the people that I started calling into my world, they were from a different stratosphere. And it was like really interesting. I was like, how have I never noticed these people before? But all of a sudden, the people that I attracted were really interesting and they were successful and they were definitely further along in life than me, be it in their relationships, in their health, in their wealth. They were definitely further along. But the thing is that you can't learn from people that are not as far along the journey as you, right? You can learn certain things, but the reality is you got to surround yourself with the people that are kind of lifting you up, not dragging you down, okay? So part of this whole show for me is about sharing my journey with you about how I got to here, but also getting you guys to understand that, happy AF isn't about being happy all the time. Because if you knew me 15 years ago, and you were just one of those surface level people that didn't know me, and truthfully, 15 years ago, unless you were one person in particular, and she knows who she is, you didn't know me, then the reality is that back then, you could ask me how I was going, and I'd be like, I'm great, thanks, how are you? And it wouldn't matter. The world could have just fallen on top of me, and you would have got the same response with me. I was as inauthentic as they came. I certainly was always looking like I was happy, and it didn't matter what was going on underneath the surface. That's what it looked like on the outside because I was so worried what everybody thought about me. I had to have this perfectly, everything had to be put together. There was no mess. It had to be tidy. It had to be neat. And it was completely inauthentic. Yet, if you'd asked me back then, I would have been like, oh, authenticity, I'm so authentic. No, I was not. I was not at all, right? And so, what I'm really learning now, and I learn every single day, is that being happy is about honoring all of those emotions: angry, sad, joy, mad, being grateful, but also allowing myself to feel shame when I feel shame and ask myself, what is that about? Right? So it's about understanding all of those emotions. And it's funny because I was chatting with one of my other girlfriends who is here with us today, but I won't drop her in it. And I was like, oh my God, you have to read this book, Untamed by Glennon Doyle. She's like, babes, I've so read that book. And then she goes on to say, I just didn't think that would be you. It's so mushy. And I'm like, I know, right? Totally loving it. And that just shows you how much you can change, right? So who you were yesterday doesn't have to be who you are today, and who you are tomorrow can be different again. So I really want you to just understand that, guys, everything about me showing up here for you and being here and sharing with you, I just kind of want to take you along this journey, and I really hope you get some value out of it. I hope it's useful. Sometimes I'm going to feel like I'm on fire. Sometimes I'm going to feel like I don't know what I'm doing. Sometimes I'll have half a clue in my head and then I'll completely lose my train of thought and go to something else. And other days I'm just going to nail it on the head. But I hope that every single time I show up, somebody gets something from what I am sharing, okay? Now, I made a few notes today because, like I said, I had time on my hands, which is totally crazy for me. So, something that came up on the weekend when I was on a date, which just, if anybody here is single and has been out of the dating scene for a while, like me, 8 years, oh my God, dating is about as vulnerable as it gets for a woman in her 40s. Yes, I'm in my 40s, and I'm not attached to this age thing, but I have to tell you that every time I look at my profile, I look at it and go 47 years old, right? And I look at other people my age and I go, oh my God, they look really old. And I think to myself, I don't look that old. I'm not that old. 47's not old. But then I see people that look they look old. And then I go, oh, is 47 old? Anyway, I digress. That wasn't what this was about. But what it was about going on this date and seeing myself in this vulnerable place, because dating is really vulnerable, right? It's a place where you go and you meet some person who's potentially someone you're looking at as a partner for life. And then you go into this space of total judgment from the second you sit down. Does this person look the right way? Do they have the right this? Do they have the right that? And it's really like a work in progress for me to sit back in those environments and go, okay, don't judge it. Just sit here, be open. I had a really lovely date on the weekend with this guy, and it was interesting, because you're kind of interviewing each other, have we got this in common? Have we got that in common? And one of the things, if you know me at all, you will know that I detoxed from the news a long time ago, right? And I'm not saying everybody should detox from the news, but here's the thing. I personally do not have the capacity to watch the news and deal with the, trauma and the horrificness that is going on in the world, even in our own backyard, let alone what's going on the other side of the world. I personally have never learned a way that I can watch all of that and still be effective in the work that I do. Now, maybe there's a way, but I haven't worked it out, and I'm not really that interested in working it out. But it got me to thinking, because I was chatting with this guy on the weekend, and he was telling me how, he watches the news every night at 6 p.m. And then, he went into his explanation about why. And it was like, well, I watch the news because it just happens to be what's on. And there was all of this, he was justifying it. And no one needs to justify anything to me, but I lean in with curiosity. So tell me, what is it about watching the news that's interesting for you? Because for me, it's like negative energy, well spoken, and it's slanted and it's bias, and you don't even know which parts of it are true. Sure, when you're seeing something with your eyes, maybe it's true, but there's always that truth, this truth, and somewhere in the middle of that's a different truth, right? And if you watch the news, different news channels, you'll see based on how they report. And in America especially, it's not as bad here, but certainly in the States, If you watch, depending on whether you watch CNN or Fox News or whatever, you're getting a completely different narrative. And so for me, I just learned a long time ago to switch that off. But I was chatting with him and he was saying to me, oh, but it's really interesting and I'm really curious about why Vladimir Putin's doing this and all of this. And so, I could see he found it really interesting. And I'm curious after this conversation whether it will change his opinion, whether he'll keep watching it. It doesn't really matter. But I know for me, I can't. So if you guys struggle at all with feeling happy and you're watching the news, like I can just tell you, for me, it made a profound impact on my mental health and my happiness levels when I just switched it off. So I don't know. That's definitely a really good idea if you don't feel great, right? And the thing is, news is insidious, okay? The thing about the news is that when it comes on, and by the way, negative energy, well spoken, I totally stole that, but I can't remember who. Joe, you're on here. You can remember the guy, because Joe, actually, my friend, shared that with me. But I've used it ever since because it was such a great statement. Because when you watch something like that, it injects you, right? It contaminates you with whatever. That's why happy people they contaminate you with their happiness. Some people walk into a room and they shine bright and they contaminate you with that. Just like when people walk in, they're slumped over and their head's down, they contaminate you with that. Right? So for me, if I watch the news, it contaminates me with stuff that is not helpful for what I do for a living. So I've just switched it off. Which brings me back to your vibe attracts your tribe. So who is your tribe and where did you find them? So 10 years ago, I made that conscious decision that I wanted to attract people into my life that, one, potentially intimidated me, but also, and when I say intimidated, just in the sense that I wanted to be the dumbest person in the room. Yes, I said it. I wanted to be the dumbest person in the room because from my standpoint, I was like, I want to learn. I want to learn from people. And once I kind of let go of my ego and realized that, if you're the one that's always talking, then you're not learning, you're teaching, and that's great. But if you're always teaching, then where are you getting your new input from? So for me, there's such a small amount of time that we have with which to put great content in our ears. Why would we waste any of that time putting stuff in our ears that isn't useful? And to me, the news is just definitely not useful. I can't change it. There's nothing I can do about what's going on overseas. It's devastating. I'm really sad for them. I can pray for them. I can think on it, but I can't do anything about it. Marie Forleo posted something up the other day where she shared how you could buy things on Etsy from people in the Ukraine, entrepreneurs. Now that's a cool thing, right? So that, I'm all about that, but I didn't have to watch the news, and I now know a way I can help a Ukrainian entrepreneur is by buying something on Etsy because the money will get to them. Now I don't know if that's true, but Marie Forleo said it's true. She usually is pretty good with her fact checking. So, guys, if you want to help, find a way to help. Emma, another friend of mine, talked about there is a food drive for all the animals that are struggling up north in Australia right now. And those things are things that we actually can do something about. If you want to buy a bag of hay or dog food or something, I can hook you up with all of the right people. I will get the deets and I will pop it into the group here. So for me, I'm really interested in something that I can impact. The news is not one of those things, okay? And the people that you have in your tribe, they play a role in impacting your mental health. So you've got to take ownership of it, but then the people in your tribe play a huge role as well, right? So over the weekend, I got to connect with a couple of my besties. I got to go and have dinner. I got to have lunch. I got to spend time on the phone with people. I got to go and have a date. And then I got to spend a whole bunch of time just sitting watching mindless television. My latest favorite series is called Younger. If you are a woman and you loved Sex in the City and you haven't seen Younger and you just want to watch some mindless 20-minute episodes of fun, then this is a show for you. This is what has been making me feel happy. I even this morning had time because I was so organized to watch a couple of episodes, which is like, oh my God, that is like a guilty pleasure doing something like that, right? So that was my rest and relaxation. And the old me would have looked at my weekend that I've just had and I probably would have beaten the shit out of myself because I would have gone, oh my God, was I productive? Did I do that work? I had all that stuff I wanted to do. And I still catch myself justifying it. I go, well, I really needed the rest. I had a bit of a rest and I caught up with friends. This internal dialogue doesn't stop for me. Okay, I don't know what it's like for you, but I'm becoming more and more aware of that internal dialogue. And does it serve me? And if it does, then great. If it doesn't, I'll let it go. Right? So I look at my weekend this weekend and I go, it was really successful because I got to connect with my beautiful friends. My daughter went and spent some time with her dad. I had enough time to go and meet him halfway and pick her up. I could do all of these things. I got to watch some episodes. And I got to reflect on where it is that I am and where it is that I want to go. So guys, look, these are all the things that make me feel happy. I would love you to go ahead and share anything that you have tried so far from any of the episodes. Or what do you do? What do you do that makes you feel happy and free, happy and fun, happy as fuck? I would really like to know. So guys, I know it's been half an hour. Can you see how fast the time flies when we are hanging out? It is ridiculous. And I want to keep it really tight on these 30 minutes because attention span wise, I know we don't have enough time today. Once again, that is a story. We can always find the time if it's important. So if you want to be happy AF, then make sure you tune in next week and I'll see you then. I love you. Thanks for watching. Bye. By the way, share. What did you like? What did you think was good? And your random act of kindness could be sharing this with someone that really needs to know about it. You know, I challenge you all to get one of your friends to jump in and join this group so that they can share the love and become happy AF too.
Be what you wanna be.